Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. Obviously, I've asked for this press availability to just make sure that you and the people of Louisiana know that the legislature's work is nowhere near finished. As of right now, we still have a $147 million gap in current year and a $1 billion gap for next fiscal year that we have to address in the next 5 days. As I mentioned to you all earlier, we cannot raise revenue in the regular session that starts later this month. And therefore, for our state agencies and higher education, everybody who's going to be impacted by this budget deficit for next year, they're going to have to start making decisions in the next 7 to 10 days. We don't have time. We have to work now in order to provide the predictability, stability of funding, and the sufficiency of funding that we need to deliver essential state services next year. And I say that because many members of the media, many folks around the state, but most troubling, many members of the legislature are speaking only in terms of the current mid-year budget deficit. We have to address them both if we're going to be successful and if we're going to do the people's business in the way that they expect us to do it. And I realize that everyone left here yesterday thinking that we were closer to resolving the current year problem than we actually are. And unfortunately, that changed with the reversal of a fiscal note on a bill involving advanced sales tax, where I understand the fiscal note went from a $75 million positive number to a zero. So if you add that up and then take the reduced fiscal note on the tobacco bill because of the amendments, we're at $147 million short current year. And again, we cannot forget the deficit we're facing next year, because that too has to be addressed before Wednesday. Now, I've been talking about this problem since at least December the 29th. More than 2 months ago, and certainly before I took office. And that is why I proposed a comprehensive and balanced plan to address current year and next year fully through a combination of strategic cuts and responsible revenue enhancements. However, as of today, the legislature has failed to produce any alternative to my plan that comes anywhere close to solving the problem. And to make matters worse, the legislature has wasted multiple days this week when they should have been voting. They should have been legislating. They should have been moving forward the plan that I gave them, or at least advancing their own plan. That hasn't happened. And as a result, while I am certainly going to keep working as hard as I can, and I know that we have an opportunity to do right by the people of Louisiana and fix these problems, I am less optimistic today as I stand before you than I was last week. And that's simply a recognition of the reality that come 6 p.m. on Wednesday night of next week, we're going to adjourn. And there has not been a lot of movement this week. So today, specifically, I'm asking the legislature to vote on some of my proposals, including the alcohol tax. And I want everyone in the state to know that just like all revenue enhancement measures, they don't come without some pain. It's not the sort of thing that I want to propose or that people want to vote on. But we need to put it in perspective. We have the largest budget deficit in the history of our state current year and next year. And what we're talking about today with respect to alcohol is 3/4 of a penny on a can of beer, the first increase since 1948. Given the magnitude of the problems that we're going to have, the catastrophic cuts that these budget deficits are going to mean for us if we don't resolve them, increasing alcohol taxes for the first time since 1948 is clearly the responsible thing to do. And I want everyone to understand, we're talking about 3/4 of a penny per can of beer. I doubt that anybody out there would even know that the tax increase happened. It's simply the right thing to do under the circumstances, And of course, that in and of itself, too, will be insufficient to fix the problem, but it is a component part of the overall plan. So I can't stress enough to you that we're nowhere near where we need to be at this time, but continued inaction on the part of the House of Representatives is clearly not helpful. When the session ends on March the 9th, the heads of agencies and universities are going to know what the cuts will be to their budgets, both current year and next year, and they're going to have to act immediately. And that is because, should we have to do it, and God knows I don't want to, financial exigency is something that requires some work. Tenured faculty have rights. We have certain steps that you have to go through if you're talking about classified employees. All of these plans have to be done well in advance of pulling the trigger. And so those people who think that we can solve this problem some other time, they are gravely mistaken. And the implications of that are serious and somewhat catastrophic. So we're working very hard to try to make sure that we close the gap in the current year. For example, we know that some of the things that higher education is going to have to consider is whether they can get through the current semester, whether they're going to have to cancel classes, whether they're going to be able to offer summer school, whether they're going to have to incorporate layoffs or furloughs into their plans. And these same considerations are going to have to be taken into account by hospitals and other folks across state agencies. We're working very hard just to keep our private partners in our LSU safety net hospitals. And those negotiations are assuming that we are going to close this gap. And we're very hard-pressed to make that work right now. The community technical college system has to figure out who will be the 1,200 people that they're going to have to lay off, for example. We've got problems with home and community providers who give care to elderly and disabled people across the state in their homes, and they told us yesterday that they know that they have cuts coming in May based upon what DHH has told them. So if the legislators think they've done their job because they've gotten somewhere close to the $940 million hole this year, they are sadly mistaken, and we are considerably short of even that number. So I want to be clear about this too. I'm prepared to accept the political scars that I walk away from this special session on. But what I'm not prepared to do is to not do the people's business so that they suffer tremendously because of inaction from a legislature that refuses to move forward on the balanced, comprehensive plan that I've given them or to come up with their own. At some point, we've all heard it. You need to lead, follow, or get out of the way. And we have some legislators who are choosing to do none of the three. So this isn't about scare tactics. It's a reality that I've been sharing with the people of this state for many weeks now. And this message has been reinforced by many folks across the state of Louisiana who fully understand the gravity of the situation and the implications of these cuts if we don't get our business together, especially those in the education community and in the healthcare community. So this is not the time to fall back and think that we've done enough and now it's time to go home. Simple fact of the matter is it's time for the tough decisions. It's time for the hard work. Tough decisions is what we didn't do in this Capitol for the last 8 years. That's why we're here. We need to fix this problem once and for all, stabilize the situation in Louisiana, allow ourselves to transition to a new and better tax structure, one that provides the reliability, the predictability going forward, and the sufficiency of the revenues to make sure that we can deliver the essential services that the people of Louisiana demand of us. In short, I understand that in some years there have been talk about catastrophic cuts only to find that a rabbit was pulled out of the hat. Well, we can't find the rabbit, and we also cannot find the hat this year. It doesn't exist. It's time to do the hard work of the people, and with that, I'm happy to take questions. Greg.
So, Governor, Senate leadership thinks it's inevitable that a second special session has to be called. Is that your opinion, and if so,
Well, first of all, it's not inevitable if they would just do the work that's before them. There is not an option that will be on the table for the legislature later that's going to be any more appetizing than the options that are there now. They have the ability, the first item in the call is for additional cuts if that's what they want to do. They have the ability to legislate around contracts, around statutory dedications. They get to look at every, basically every way to raise revenue possible. But we need to do the people's business now, Greg, and the reason is we don't have time to provide the predictability and stability of funding that our agencies need to prevent them from having to make decisions in the next couple of weeks about what they're going to do next year because of the time involved in proposing the course of action and getting it cleared. And so that is a distraction. The folks in the legislature ought to be focused on doing the business today, not some other time in the future. I don't really want to get into the likelihood of a special session down the road. I will tell you, I personally don't believe you can do a concurrent special session with the regular session. I don't think the Constitution allows that, and I think that there are certain dates given in the Constitution within which you cannot consider revenue measures, and that happens to be when the regular session is. Ms. Sue?
Governor, you've been saying the legislature not acting, and you know that you've been meeting with various members of the leadership of both chambers. Is it the legislature that's not playing nice, or is it the House that's not playing nice?
Well, first of all, it's a good question. And I haven't just been meeting with the leadership. I have been meeting with everyone that I can meet with and have spent many, many hours working towards finding that common ground, which is what I said I would do. And quite often, the discussions that I'm having are very, very fruitful and productive, only to see the legislators go back to their chambers and there continue to be in action. Clearly, the problem is in the House of Representatives. Just by virtue of the fact that new revenue has to originate in the House, and it's not originating in the House. The Senate has to receive instruments before they can really act. So the problem is primarily in the House of Representatives. That's a fair statement, and that's the correct answer to your question. Again, I'm hopeful that the House will continue to move, and for those members who don't like being put in a position of having to vote first because they're in the House, I would just suggest they should have realized that before they ran for the position. Yes, sir.
With all these meetings that you have going on and the plan that you put forth, why you put all the blame on the legislature? What do you say that you're the problem, that you're not showing the proper leadership to provide the solution?
Well, I just reject that, Tyler. I'm the only one who's put a comprehensive plan on the table at all. There is nobody in the legislature who is proposing cuts that they will stand by and endorse that would solve the problem. And there's nobody in the legislature putting up the difference in revenue increases that they will stand by and endorse to solve the problem. So long as that continues to be the case, as between my office and the legislature is the problem. Now, to the extent that I have not offered the appropriate leadership, I'm doing the dead level best that I can. I don't know how I can communicate and work any harder than I am with not just the leadership, but with the rank and file of the legislature. And look, it's not all hopeless. We have 5 days. We can get it done. There is enough time. I'm not here saying that this has been a failure. I'm saying that if they don't move soon, if their approach to this, if their lackadaisical approach continues over the next few days, then clearly we're not going to be successful, and the implications of that are severe. Yes, ma'am.
You're talking about, on the same subject of leadership, one of the things that seems to be a problem in the House is no one can really identify who is the chief negotiator on behalf of the chamber in terms of what they want. Have you found that to be a problem, that you don't know who to talk to in that chamber on the subject of taxes?
Well, there is certainly a challenge around having negotiations and discussions with the House of Representatives in the leadership, because it's always been the case in the past that if you have an agreement with the Speaker, you know what that gets you. That has not proven to be the case thus far. But again, I continue to work with the Speaker. That is the leadership of that body, and I know that the Speaker is working with me in good faith. He is obviously facing some difficulties in the House and getting people to stand with him so that he can move them in the right direction. But I'm going to keep working with him and with individual members, whether they're in leadership or not, and I'm hopeful that they're all going to come together and understand the urgency of the situation and respond accordingly. Yes, ma'am.
Governor, do you see this sluggish behavior in the House as intentional for political reasons?
As intentional, you know, when you have a number of members, it's hard to assign any particular reason or intention to the entire group. I believe that some of it has to do with new members not potentially fully understanding. I think some of it has to do with an intransigence that's born out of ideology. I would just restate again, for those people who don't want to do anything, you really need to either lead, follow, or get out of the way. If you're not going to propose your own plan, follow mine. And if you're going to do neither, then you're just part of the problem, and we need to get past that. Obviously, there is the time left to get past it and to do the people's business, but there's going to have to be some change in the dynamic down there, obviously, to make that happen. Yes, ma'am.
Shifting gears just a little bit, we know that you met with President Clinton last night. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how that meeting went and whether you've early voted and if you're voting for Secretary Clinton. Sorry.
First of all, I did have a nice meeting with the president last night. He came by and we had some coffee, and I think it was oatmeal raisin cookies. And we spoke for a while, and we talked about a variety of subjects, and the exact conversation I'm not going to relate to you. I will tell you that very, very little of it had to do with the presidential race this year. I did early vote yesterday. In answer to your question, the last time I checked, that was a secret ballot, but I did vote in the Democratic primary. There were only certain candidates from which to choose. You didn't even let me finish answering the question, Tyler. I voted for Secretary Clinton. Yes.
Governor, you have some of these so-called sin taxes in the call of tobacco, alcohol, which we just heard you make a big push for. Gaming is not on the call, and we're in the final days. You're growing less optimistic. You don't want to see another special session, but if so, is that an area that you would be open to putting on a call, or is that an industry that you think should be protected? Why wasn't it on the call?
Well, the simple answer is it is the most regulated and highly taxed industry in the state of Louisiana today. And over 30%, and I understand that it depends on whether you're talking about video poker or some of the other forms of gaming as to the percentage, but I know, for example, with video poker, it's 31.5% taxed already, and so it's the most highly regulated, highly taxed industry today, and that's why it's not on the call. I'm not talking about future special sessions because I think that's a distraction from the work at hand. Yes, ma'am.
What's the pushback to the alcohol tax? When you talk to legislators, what are they saying is making them reservations? I mean, beyond just general, so they've moved the cigarette tax, they've moved the sales tax. What is the holdup with the alcohol?
Well, first of all, we're going to have a vote today, and I hope there isn't going to be a holdup. I think when they understand that we're talking about 3/4 of a penny per can of beer, for example, that is the first tax increase on alcohol since 1948. that we have a historic budget deficit that we have to deal with. All of those things, I think, will move legislators in the right direction. And when they realize that well over half of the alcohol industry in Louisiana is not opposed to the measure, I think that will help move them as well. Well, I will let the floor notes speak for themselves this afternoon, but I can tell you that the wholesalers here in Louisiana on the beer and the liquor side are not opposed. Yes, sure.
Do you have any idea, if we were to have a $147 million deficit, how those cuts would fall? I know they're falling at higher ed and healthcare, but I don't feel like we have updated numbers on who's getting what.
Well, first of all, it's my goal to make sure that we don't have to allocate those cuts out. It is enough to know right now that the cuts would be catastrophic. I want you all to, just to put this in perspective, I believe the Senate moved House Bill 122 out of the Senate Finance Committee yesterday and back to the floor with a total of about $6 or $7 million in cuts beyond what I had proposed. That's where the legislature is on the cut side. If that's the most we can do in cuts, our obligation now is to make sure that we're filling the rest of the hole with revenue. And the cuts associated with what I proposed are themselves very, very painful, but they are calculated and they are reasonable in the overall situation. But I am not going to say today exactly how those cuts would be allocated, but we all know at the end of the day, because of the way the structure of our budget is, and we haven't had a chance to do everything that we need to do to restructure it, that most of those cuts would be borne by higher education and healthcare, which is why I illustrated the types of choices that our agencies and the higher education community is going to have to make, not 3-4 months from now, but over the next couple of weeks, should we end this session Wednesday night without having fixed our problems.
Okay, last question.
Last question. Jeremy, you haven't asked a question yet, I don't think. Or did you? Did you?
You said on Wednesday that you wanted to take a fresh look at business utilities, and that, or rather, I guess you wanted lawmakers to take a fresh look at business utilities. I know you've had some meetings with industry leaders. What do you mean by fresh look? And it seems like you're making a bigger push for alcohol today, but are you asking for that vote as well?
I am not asking for that vote today, but it is part of the ongoing discussions that I'm having. And we have a situation where utilities, the sales tax on utilities for non-residential users was reduced a number of years ago in order to respond to several things, one of which is we had a $1 billion surplus. Today we have a $2 billion deficit. Secondly, we had the highest electric rates in the country at the time, and natural gas was trading at above $8. Today, I think natural gas is $1.82, and we have the lowest electric rates in the country, and we have a $2 billion shortfall. All of those things combined lead me to believe that that is an area that we should visit to try to get some revenue to fill this hole. And it is also noteworthy that there are some very good corporate citizens within the chemical industry, particularly Shintech and Cheniere, that support that approach. And so with that in mind, I believe it's the right thing to do to continue looking in that direction. But as we need to continue looking in all of the directions that I proposed, because a comprehensive plan, when you have a whole this big, it involves many component parts. That's the only way I believe you can ultimately be successful in putting together a package that's large enough to respond to the largest budget deficit in the history of our state. Thank y'all very much. I've got to go have lunch now with some folks to continue working on our issues. Thank you.